Well, thanks for joining me for the segment AM Talk, and I have in the studio John Alexander Kom, Deputy Minister for Gender,
Children and Social Protection.
Social Protection.
So bring the gender in.
Sandwich.
Gender, children and social protection.
Gender, sandwich. Oh, sorry. Gender, children and social protection. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Which constituency do you originally come from?
Obuasi, there it was divided, and my area became Obuasi West in terms of constituency. But ordinarily, I love talking about Obuasi.
Stronghold, I believe.
Not historically, but they always have an edge.
You want to change the statistics, I believe.
Well, we are moving politics governance in the direction of credibility. So it depends on the judgment of the people.
I always like you, you know. You're a very free answer to everything. And one person who also is very confident and has a lot more answers to every question that is asked is Joe Osei-Wusu. And he is a member of parliament for Bekwai. He's been contested by another personality. Has always been, I believe, the last 2 terms, so to speak. And thanks for joining me. He's a legal practitioner also, and one-time chief executive for the DVLA, and brought a lot of changes, so to speak. It's very, very friendly to us as well.
It's an old rivalry.
Thank you. Right. So thanks for joining me, sir.
You're welcome.
But Parliament, you began well, we are going to know as the Conduct of Public Officers Bill 2013, and you're currently at the consideration stage. And right. Yesterday the media picked up aspects of the debate about gift, bribery, and then also declaration of assets. Give us a briefing on what really transpired in Parliament in specificities as far as that is concerned.
Okay, yesterday we started discussing clause by clause. That's what we do at the consideration stage, and amendments that are proposed to the original bill. I'm part of the committee that reviewed the bill and proposed the amendment. So I think the first set what we're dealing with is with declaration of assets. What assets are public officers to declare? Where are they to be declared at? And so on. And the major issue that came for discussion to do with the quantum of jewelry that you can declare. The original bill suggested that jewelry, the value of which is 1,000 Ghana cedis or more, is to be declared. And the committee proposed that in today's terms, the value of which of a jewelry 1,000 or more is not any big thing, it's not a big deal. So we are proposing that if it is to be declared, then the value should be 10,000 cedis or more. So that became contentious. That was one of the issues that was debated. Because I have seen a wedding ring worth 4,000, 5,000 Ghana. Now, if I'm to declare assets and I declare my wedding ring, what is the value of that to you? You know, but if it is 10,000 cedis or more, then you can see that that particular jewelry or art, work of art, is something of a high value and could be called a store of asset, which is worth declaring. You know, that became the controversy whether or not we should declare that 1,000 Ghana or 10,000 Ghana. That's largely that was what. And then what was an acceptable gift and which one was not an acceptable gift. I think the contention is whether gifts can be accepted after the performance of one's duty. The proposal is that any gift that has the potential to influence your decision is not acceptable. But there's a list of acceptable gifts, and gifts that are like a souvenir that is for everybody in the organization. If, for example, Joy News decided I would donate pens to all members of parliament, then a member of parliament accepting that cannot be said to be accepted an unlawful gift because it's for all members. If, for example, Ghana Bar Association decided that all members of parliament who are lawyers should pay half the annual registration fee, that is for all members of parliament, and that in that case it is no secret. So, or for example, all broadcasters who are journalists, or let's say TV broadcasters who are journalists, the Ghana Journalists Association decide to give you a rebate of 20% of your annual registration fee, it's a gift or a value that everybody is going to benefit. So you cannot see that as an unacceptable gift. These are some of
the aspects of workings of public officers. And for example, if you accept a gift from a relative, what happens?
Yes.
Once it's not connected or is connected to either an activity you're doing in office or not connected.
So there are a list of acceptable gifts, and one of them is accepting a gift from a relative, and the purpose for the gift is just that you're a relative, nothing more. For example, if I have one daughter, and if she got married, and my son-in-law came and said, "Oh, I bought you a cognac worth £4,000. I've seen some of them worth more than that."
Cognac?
Oh yeah. Some as high as 10,000. Yes, 10,000 pounds sterling.
So the ones we keep buying, like the Hennessy cognacs, they're not.
Oh, what we buy here is good, but some are much higher in value than that. I get your point. That's right. So that's a very expensive thing. But if it's coming from my son-in-law, just because I'm his father-in-law, it is an acceptable gift.
Right. Now, this also ropes you in because you're a serving public officer. Okay. As far as we're concerned, what's your own observation about the intent of the law? Before we even have to touch on the subject of whether we appropriately have been implementing some of these things.
Thank you very much, Raymond. But it's interesting. We are emerging, they say economy, and I guess in democracy we are also emerging. So as we grow, other issues will strongly come up. So it's in very good stead. You know, the issues of corruption is all over the place now, and the perception is so huge, more particularly for some of us in politics and parliament. People just throw corruption about like that, and you can do little of it. Either we contribute to it by way of our politics or something. So it's good we are emerging. I just do a small comparison. Even employment, in some areas, they look at it, they say don't discriminate. Racial, color, all those things. But they will go and see if even there's an impact of your actions which shows that you are discriminating, then some actions will come. So we have to narrow down. I've heard people talk about the fact that we have laws in this country, but implementation or enforcement is a problem. So it's important to catch what is important we should do. The intent of the earlier laws were not bad, but per that time that was the thinking. Now we have been made to a process where people want to see real action implementation. So it's good Parliament itself is discussing, because there's so many things out there against MPs and public office holders. And to the extent that if you even have a chat with Raymond and he buys you a drink, somebody say, hey, I saw Raymond, politically you'll be tainted. You understand?
Yes,
you go out now to have a drink. Hey, I saw Raymond the last time sitting on one account and watch it well. So these are the issues that are emerging. So we try to do laws. And I realize these days, the laws are closing up on the little things we normally ignore. So it's important to define what we mean, so that when it goes to court, that debates will go down.
Practically,
yes.
Aren't we likely to see perhaps some clashes in let's say your relative is giving you a gift, but that relative is a big contractor, was a big contractor before you even became, whether in laws or whatever, in many respects. But that same person has contractual obligations with government and has always been having with government, and with your current government in which you're serving has those obligations as well. But it gives you a gift, whether you have an influence or not. How can we generally try to decouple that with what they intended intent of?
Don't you think it's interesting? You were just talking about law, and in that situation, he said something that, if to the extent that the gift is from a relative to another person, so now the law they say is evidential, so it will go to court, and there should be a proof. As for this one, it is not part of the normal gift that should be proven, but this one is because the person has this level of interest. Somebody can say, my brother, I know we've been doing these things to me, but because of the current circumstances, please stay put. But it would not necessarily mean that it is wrong or right. Issues will have to be proven to show that indeed on this occasion you have crossed the barrier.
I wish, you see, the bill is also suggesting that for you, the recipient of the gift, you have a duty to check whether that gift is intended to influence you now or in the future. So if, for example, I know that my son-in-law, the example I used, is a contractor, let's say at the time I was at DVLA, and he was actually plans or intends to bid for a project at DVLA, then notwithstanding that is my son-in-law, I have a duty to check whether this gift, is it intended to influence my decision, or it is just a gift because he wants to.
How do you determine that, and at what pace of the discretion? For example, not necessarily even your relative, could be your friend, but I mean, you've known him all your life. He gives you things, you share things, and you have a lot of things in common. But now, well, if let's say the public opinion is that your party could be forming the next government, and he sees that you're a very credible person, you could be in a state to be occupying a very sensitive and important position when your government comes to power, so to speak. But start showering the gifts on you.
Or start funding your primaries.
You're not even in office yet. But logically, how do you determine whether, well, there could be an influence or exertion of some level of influence on me when I happen to occupy a position in office?
Well, you see, in law,
we know this one is not captured in the law.
Yes, we say that even the devil cannot know the intent of man. So what to do is infer from the circumstances to determine. But you see, your judgment in the end is what will determine whether you checked or you did not check. The position is that you have a duty to check that the law is not intended to influence you. But if, for example, I have a friend who has always been funding my activities, notwithstanding that I'm not in a position to do anything.
Is it just a hypothetical, or that's real?
Yes, I'm talking about hypothetical case. And during these times, you have people who really come into your aid. He likes you as a person. He thinks that you're a good person to represent him. And then he'll come and fund your activity. Then, subsequently, you win the elections, your party wins, and you take a public office appointment. Let's say you become a minister, and he's a player in that ministry. Now, what you do will determine whether those gifts you received from him have influenced what you have done. And that is when, it was at that point that the gift you have received, even before you knew you would become a minister, will come an issue. But for now, if a friend is funding my campaign, he has done that all the while, I don't have any reason to believe that I'll become minister for broadcasting. Let's say what that would be communication. And then I win. My party wins. I'm minister for communications, and he applies for a license to operate a TV. How I would treat that application, if I have any discretion, will determine whether I am influenced by those gifts or not.
All right.
And so evidence will always be, as he suggested.
We're human beings, and we have a good sense of judgment or a bad one. But the point is, we're smart enough to know when to be evasive and not to be evasive. For every law, there are loopholes that could be exploited. And, well, you look at, for example, I look at the content, the arrangement of the sections. That is declaration of assets and liability. Declaration of assets to be declared is all indicated. The assets acquired after declaration, if not declared, also their incomes and loans and things like that. And then avoidance of conflict of interest situations, etc. All those things have been indicated. At what point do you think that we need to be smart enough and say that whoever is involved or is seen perhaps is also evading the law wisely, or is trying to be smart?
Not to have declared.
Well, in those respects, or whether it's a gift, or whether they're genuine assets.
I think we should lift from where Honorable said. And like he said, the devil cannot even know your mind. So, and people support you for various reasons, to be very honest to you, and they will not tell you. But they are anticipating a position in future, and they will not also tell you. So generally you take that one, and then, like he said, what you will do, that eventually, when you have the position, then his face will come. you would have heard a lot of issues about the fact that, have you seen, it's very wicked. When he was hot, he was contesting, I helped him to this level. Now that I also need help, he doesn't want to do. And that is the way the press should also start following this issue, so that you follow it rightly and help us in discourse. Otherwise, people will continue to be bad people in the system. So, and you can know his mind. How can you reject somebody comes, oh Charlie, I've known you, but you're going to contest, get this small thing, and can you really in our contest reject it? But the others would have known them already, you know their interest line, and therefore that one, the temptation should be there. So I think you should be weighed very strongly. So they've placed some amount of onus on you as the person, the potential occupier of public office or the current occupier, to weigh yourself very well. So I think in the case of this, the court will now let the burden come on you, the person, instead of the accuser. And that is the weight of this particular provision.
Otherwise, enforcement.
Well,
problem is the enforcement.
That is,
especially now you're talking so well, your government, your party will come into government and implementation becomes a problem. Of course, the other side also will take you on, but it's all about enforcement.
That is our Achilles' heels, really, as a country. And I've always criticized our failure to implement the law. We are quick to pass the laws, but very, very, very literally flat-footed when it comes to implementation. Yesterday I was reading a report of Ghana Integrity Initiative that was ranking Ghana, and it says when it comes to legislations, Ghana is ranked very high because practically every law we need, we have it. But the next step is implementing. Now, I can understand the challenges we have, particularly because we have placed too much of the power to implement in the hands of politicians. Every politician along the way would have been supported left or right.
But with entrenched clauses in the Constitution, it becomes more difficult to
even entrenched clauses
the
are changeable. And the Constitutional Review Commission's work shows clearly that the suggestion that we decouple the prosecutorial part from the ministerial part, those things are critical, you know. And then Shraj. In fact, this is one of the things, this bill is intended to give power to the Shraj to prosecute for corrupt acts. You know, this Public Officers Conduct bill is one of the ways by which we think that the Commission should have the power to prosecute people for corrupt practices and so on. But it is not enough to say you have been given the power. Whether they will act on it, well, if you are not lucky, you have a commissioner who says, I don't have a budget to prosecute. I have a budget to run conferences only. Then that's the challenge you have. But it's really something we must put our minds to. It hurts to see that here it is. The law says do A, B, C, D, E. And then we find excuses rather not to do it. All kinds of excuses. From the time I came into real public, those are, I found that we sit down to find reasons not to apply the law. When the Road Traffic Act was passed in 2004, and we're having implementation conferences facilitated by the National Road Safety Commission and DVLA, said, here is the law, apply it. Then you find agency by agency offering excuses why they cannot. Oh, the LI is not there. But the Act itself has given you powers. There are some which are being left to be defined by LIs. Even if the LI has not come, there are those that are definitive do's and don'ts. We should ensure that people don't follow.
John Alexander, is it a subculture, or is it also because of the familiarity of our customs and the way we tend to relate? So well, it makes it difficult to, let's say, because I know Joe Wise, prosecute him for whatever, if I'm in a higher public office or I have an oversight responsibility.
Take that as a human tendency. It is there within all of us. So all the laws should work against such tendencies. Don't behave as if you are angels and therefore when you pass the law and I know him, I'll just apply it.
So why don't we do the right thing?
So you look at the law and look at those as a hindrance, objection, or bottleneck. And let's go beyond the bottleneck. Let's go to charge and those institutions. Now, they are supposed to be a check on public office. But then who does the appointment? What level of autonomy do they have? Was it good initially? Yes. But what is the development now? Do we still need to get that level of appointment or we should go institutional appointment, where allegiances will not be so solid to the extent the person will feel free to be able to execute that function. So I think there's a way. Growing now, we should mend our ways and get good ways of attacking. I mean, if you have laws and enforcement is difficult, or if you have laws which get broken every day, you should go back and look at the law. So we are matured now to look at all the issues which are running and come out very strongly this time.
Okay.